Okay, let's talk about Mythic Lura. We'll just get started off right away. The first phase has 5 major mechanics. It has the kicks, the crystal spawns, the glaives, the memory game, and the beams. And these happen on a set order, 1 through 5, and it happens 3 times throughout the phase, the cycle. So immediately on pull, the boss is going to get pulled to this pillar on the left of the entranceway. You want to kind of angle him a little bit to the right of the pillar, whoever's tanking the boss, so that the glaives kind of split the pillar and go both ways. But you can pull him there right at the start and then just turn him a little bit. Very first thing that happens is the kicks. We're going to be using the Relo Lura Interrupt Weak Aura. You have to install the Weak Aura fork, which is called Meek Auras. I'll have a link to it in the description of the video. And then you just grab the Lura Weak Aura from within. You can get the link inside NSRT. But a couple things to note about this Weak Aura: the note for who you assign the kicks needs to be at the top of the NSRT note for it to work. And then you'll be using boss frame kick macros, which I'll also put in the description of the video. So you see here, she does termination matrix cast. You see you have the number. You see it'll show you the name of who's assigned that kick, and then when it is your kick, it'll turn green, and you'll get an interrupt bar in the middle of your screen telling you that it's your turn to kick. You basically will just put the boss frame kick macro as a replacement for your actual kick on your action bars. So you don't need to target it. You don't need to focus it. You just press your kick when that bar shows up on the screen and it'll kick the right one, as long as you're using the correct macro. After kicks, we get crystal spawns. Crystal spawns immediately happen when the kicks are finished. If you have 3 DKs, you can have them grip every single crystal, and that can be your solve. We're going to be using 2 DKs, which is what Liquid did at the end of their prog. The way we're going to handle this is 1 DK is going to be looking, so I'm going to be the blood DK. I'm going to be looking to my left, since I'm going to be in front of the boss. And then the other DK is going to be behind, looking to his left. So you basically just want to cover half and half of the boss, grip the far ones, and then we're going to have 3 knockback characters behind the boss, ready to knock any that are towards the middle into the stack. This first one is only 6 crystals, so it's pretty easy to gather them. There's also the healing crystals that spawn. We're going to have assigned Evoker Rescues and Grips to get them grouped up in one spot. We're also going to be assigning personals or externals to be used on these crystals because they take ramping ticking damage. We have to heal them to full, and the longer they aren't at full, they're going to be taking more and more ticking damage. So there's eventually going to be a break point where you cannot heal them to full, and we just wipe. So we want to reduce that damage with externals and heal them to full as fast as possible. The deadline for healing these crystals to full is going to be before the glaive spawn that happens. I'll change it here. It's supposed to be glaive spawn. But if you cannot heal them to full before the glaive spawn, you need to make sure they do not get to full until after the glaives, because you don't want to have a situation where the glaives are shooting out as they hit full and they turn into a dawn crystal, and then the crystal gets hit by the glaive and it's just an instant wipe, right? So our initial plan is going to be shooting to heal them to full before the glaives happen, but like I said, in the instance that you cannot do that, you need to make sure it happens after the glaives so that we don't wipe. After glaives, you've probably all seen it from the race. Now there's only 5, as there were 4 before. She spawns 5 glaives around her hitbox like this, and then they shoot out super fast. So you want to get in between where they're going to shoot out from so that you don't get hit. And then the tank is going to be splitting this pillar so that one hits the right side of the pillar, one hits the left side of the pillar, and we don't have any instances of the glaive just ricocheting back through the boss. As you can see with that positioning, they all kind of just fly away. They persist for 2 minutes now, was 3 minutes before, so there should be less glaives overall that you have to worry about, but it's still going to be the hardest part of P1 is watching glaives and not getting hit. If you have a crystal, it's an instant wipe. If a crystal on the floor gets hit, it's an instant wipe. and they are just one shot because they tick at like 5 times a second. So you can never get hit by a glaive. After that is the memory game. So for this, we're going to be using the NSRT memory game add-on. It's just a baseline part of NSRT. You need to make sure that you go into NSRT and grab the files from Relo's GitHub for the icons. So basically, it'll swap out in-game icons for the 5 symbols that are shown on screen. And then when you actually have to do the memory game, you'll see this and not like pants and bracers and random icons. I'll also include a link to that GitHub for those icons in the description of the video. So the way this is going to work is there's 3 phases. There is the upstairs phase, which is what everyone is in before it starts. There's the red phase, and there's the blue phase. The boss is going to flash the symbols across those 3 phases in an order. So it's going to be the first symbol is upstairs, second symbol is red phase, third symbol is blue phase, and then fourth is upstairs again, and then fifth is red again. So 1 and 4 upstairs, 2 and 5 red phase, and then 3 is the blue phase. Now, the way we're going to solve this is the tank upstairs, who is actively tanking the boss, is going to handle the 1 and 4 inputs using the macros generated through NSRT. They need to have raid lead. So you need to make sure to give your tank raid lead when you're pulling this boss, because that ensures that he can only put symbols into 1 and 4. And it basically starts up the sequence as well when he puts the marker for whatever number 1 is. And then we're going to have healers assigned to do the red and blue phase macros. So that's 2, 3, and 5. If you want, you can give 2 of your healers crystals in this phase, because anyone with a crystal is guaranteed to stay upstairs. So that will force the 2 healers without crystals to be in the red and the blue phase, and they can do the macro every time. I do not recommend this because it is a very intense healing fight, and giving your healers another responsibility of handling the crystal, it is probably too much. A lot of guilds who have tried starting out with healers holding crystals have decided to swap off of it because it is extremely hard and will add to your pull count greatly, just because healers already have so much to do. So the way we're going to handle this is every healer is going to have their macros set up, and we'll have a priority system. I'm pretty sure only 1 healer gets put in each phase. There's at least 1 in each, and then there's going to be a 4th healer that floats. I'm pretty sure that healer stays upstairs. He might go into another phase, but basically the healers are just going to call which phase they're in, and they're going to do those macro inputs so that it's consistent every single time. And then once those macro inputs are put into the add-on, everyone's going to have the map on their screen. The 5 symbols are going to be assigned, and you're just going to spread out just like it shows on the map around the boss. The beam always rotates clockwise now on every single set, so it's going to be the same all 3 times throughout P1. Important thing to know is if you are a crystal player and you get a symbol, you need to try and drop the crystal and then walk forward. Any cosmic damage that the crystal takes while it's on the ground is an instant wipe. So you see this demon hunter back here who has the crystal. He drops it and he walks forward, so this circle is not intersecting the crystal itself. You get hit by cosmic damage when the actual mechanic happens. So if you're holding the crystal and you get hit, you're going to spawn the 2 soaks that happen whenever a crystal player gets hit by cosmic damage. However, if it's on the ground and you get hit, if you're standing on it with your circle, it will just explode and wipe the raid. So you need to make sure you're very confident in your movement here. If you're ever scared of, let's say, a glaive that's close, maybe hitting the crystal, or you're scared that you don't have enough time to do the movement, you can hold the crystal and we can handle the soaks, but you want to try your best to do this where you drop the crystal and move forward, but just play for not wiping the raid. we can adjust if there are soaks that we need to soak. It's not the end of the world. So after that, we get beams. So as soon as the memory game finishes, we're all grouping up in the middle of the room in kind of a line with the boss, and we're going to get a movement speed, and there's going to be beam spawns. So these can go in either direction, either clockwise or counterclockwise, and the solve is just to move the opposite direction of the beam movement. So you see how it spawns here for them, and it's moving counterclockwise. They're going to run to the right, behind the beam, and then follow it. So that's why it's important to be lined up with the boss to make that movement very binary based on the direction of the beam. And then you see we're just following the boss, going to a new pillar, and then the mechanics just repeat for the phase. So we just do that 3 times. The only thing that changes is on this set of crystals, or on the last set of crystals, there's no healing crystals, and there's 9 DPS crystals. So a lot of guilds are prog lusting here because this is another major white point for a lot of guilds is getting all these crystals grouped up and killing them. So we might potentially prog lust here just to make sure these crystals die and we can see into the intermission and further phases. But eventually we do have to move the lust off of here and put it in P3. So as soon as we finish P1, we go into the intermission. In the intermission, we have assigned spread positions. Now, these spread positions are based on where we end the phase. They are not like, okay, me and the other tank are always going to be at the X marker. That is not what we're doing. We're doing consistent movement. So the boss could end the phase in a bunch of different locations, right? But we want as minimal coggy load as possible. So wherever we end the phase, the movement you do is going to be the same. So like Pete is always going to be to the left of the boss right here when we phase. Wolfstone's always going to be here. The DHs are always going far. The tanks are always going to the opposite side of the dark well from the boss. If that makes sense, if you have any questions, you can ask me. But it's just relative to where we end the phase is the movement you're doing, and you're doing the same movement every time, and we're spreading out in this pattern. During this phase, the tanks want to get 2 of the crystals, so your weakest 2 players want to kind of step to the side and drop their crystals. So for us, it's going to be Pete and Bwins are dropping their crystals, 1 for each side. So I'm going to grab Pete's crystal, and Herbs is going to grab Bwins' crystal. You guys are just going to step to the side, ping yourself, and we will walk to you and grab your crystal on our way to the other side of the boss. During this phase, there's 2 important things to keep in mind. There's the beams from the boss, which you just need to watch out for and not get hit by. And then there's the blaze lines. So the blaze lines are the main reason that we're spreading this much for the phase. Throughout the phase, random players will get targeted by these star blaze lines. You want to just plant the best you can, and other people will adjust around you. Obviously, if there's beams that you have to sidestep, you have to do it. But the actual beam is very precise. So like if you're not in this light blue part of the blaze line, you're not going to get hit. So don't panic too much, but just try and plant as much as you can if you get a blaze line. If you have a crystal and you get a blaze line, like right here, he gets a blaze line, you have to drop the crystal and move away from it so that you don't spawn any soaks. So you see he just drops the crystal, sidesteps. You do not have to move very far. And as soon as the blaze line goes off, he picks his crystal back up. And if you have a crystal, that is the only extra thing you have to do in this phase. Otherwise, you're just staying in your position and hitting the boss. At the very end of the intermission, every single player gets a blaze line, which you'll see right here. And he actually even gets 2 because there's a dead player. But you need to make sure you drop your crystal and move away from it, just the same. That was actually crazy. I hadn't seen that before, but that is crazy that crystal did not get hit. As soon as the intermission is over, we get stunned and sucked into the dark well, and that begins phase 2. So phase 2 is again a cycle of mechanics 3 times, and then the phase ends. So those mechanics are the soak lines, which is the first mechanic you get. For this, it is 1 tank, 1 ranged, 1 melee, and 1 healer that gets targeted. And for us, you can see here, we have assigned markers for each soak. Star is for the tanks, X is for the ranged, skull is for the melee, and circle is for the healers. Now, you don't have to line up like this. I just did this so the assignments are clear. You can be stacked, and you actually want to be stacked close to the boss for healing and for raid DR like AMZ and Darkness. If you have a crystal, before the beam goes off, you need to sidestep, drop the crystal, and walk into the soak. You see here, he drops his crystal, walks in, soak goes off, and he goes back and picks up his crystal. The timing here, you're going to have to just get used to. It's not like immediately when the soaks spawn that you drop the crystal. You have to wait a little bit, and then you drop it, get in, pick it up. The beams here, in order to hit the balls with minimal movement, the first beam is left of the marker. So you see here, they're slightly left of skull, slightly left of star, slightly left of X. So we're actually left of the marker to make sure we hit all the correct balls. The second one is on the marker, and the third one is to the right of the marker. So we're just shifting a little bit for each beam, but that's an important thing to remember. Left, and then on marker, and then right of marker. After the soaks go out, pick up crystals. We get sucked into the center by the pull effect of the 4 orbs. Everyone needs to be fighting this suck except the crystal players. The crystal players need to drop their crystals when these spread circles go out. And if you're not fighting this suck as a non-crystal player, you're going to end up picking up one of these. So the people who are holding the crystals are not fighting the suck. They're getting sucked into the middle of the room, and everyone else is fighting the suck towards their spread spot. So you see everyone spreading out. The crystal players are going to be close to the middle because they have to drop their crystals and then get out. And then everyone else is spreading out around the outside. You can see our spread positions here. We have 8 players on the inside, which is the same as Pop-Tart Corn Dog Dig. So that means there's 2 players who are not crystal people. They still need to fight the suck, but like we're going to probably be anchoring off of DZ, who's our DK, who's going to be on circle. He can just Death's Advance and stand on circle, so he's not getting sucked at all. And he's going to be one of our main anchor points because he's not going to be moving at all. So we're kind of just adjusting around him. But we have 4 players, 1 on each marker, and then you slot in people in between, and then the people on the outside kind of just fill in the space, but get as close to the outside edge as possible without killing yourself. But these are our spread positions for that. You want to think about these spread positions because it's important for the end of the phase going into P3. The group gets split in half. So you want to make sure that who you're sending to the left and the right group for P3 matches up with your spread positions here as much as possible, just to reduce the amount of change that's happening as you pull the boss. Some guilds like change their positioning for the last spread so that people get knocked in the right position, but I think it's better to just have the same spread positions every single time, and it just work out that you get knocked to the right side with the spread positions that you're doing every time, right? The only change that we're going to make is DZ and Maestro, who is our DK and our Rep Paladin, are going to have to kind of lean towards their side that they're getting knocked. DZ's actually going to just AMS and go walk on top of herbs here, and you guys are going to soak together. Just to make it easy. And then that's going to give the crystal people a little bit more wiggle room and Maestro room to kind of just move to the side a little bit to make sure he gets knocked in the correct direction. But that's like the only change we're making for the last set of of spread circles. But again, this is the last, not technically. The last mechanic is the basketballs shoot in towards the middle and do a big raid burst of damage. And then after that happens, it's a repeat. We get soaks into suck, into spread, into basketballs, shoot towards the center, and we do that 3 times, and then the phase is over. So this is a very scary healer phase. You need to be watching your health the entire time. There is a lot of damage going on here, and you will probably have many wipes to just healers getting used to the movement of the phase and getting used to their cooldowns. So don't blame them too much. This is probably the hardest part of the fight for healers. Another important thing that I do want to note is the tanks who were holding these crystals in Intermission 1. You want to make sure these get back on their correct players. So I need to give mine back to Pete, and Herb needs to give his back to Bwins. It is not recommended that tanks be holding crystals in this phase due to the fact that they're constantly swapping the boss and getting the beam on them. So the crystal just adds a lot of complexity to what they're doing in this phase, and it should be a lot easier for the other players to just take their crystals back. And it's also important for the assignments here, because if you have a crystal in this phase, you will never be targeted by the line mechanic. So the way we're handling so there's no floaters in this composition. We have 3 crystal players with the tanks. We have 1 crystal player with the 4 healers. And then you can put the other 2 crystal players in their normal groups. But it just guarantees that everyone's in the same group every single time, and there's no difference from pull to pull. So at the end of P2, you get 1 last set of spreads. And this is what I was talking about, that it's important that you think about your spread assignments a little bit, because you get knocked back out of the dark well onto your 2 split sides. So you want to think of this knock in terms of your groups, because when the crystal players get knocked, they take cosmic damage, and it causes the soaks to spawn. So we are going to be thinking of this phase in terms of 3 groups on each side, and they are going to be helping with the individual soaks for each group. So you can see here we have the groups assigned based on the direction that the crystal players are going to get knocked. And then they're just kind of helping with their soaks. And then after the soaks happen, they're running together back to the boss. You don't want to run ahead of your group, because in this phase you have the aura around the crystal that protects you from a lot of the raid damage that's going on in this phase. So you want to make sure you're walking together as a group back to the boss and not leaving anyone behind. We are going to be swapping 2 of our crystals on each side over to healers. And the reason we're doing this in this phase is for the memory game mechanic. If you are holding a crystal, you will never be assigned a symbol. So basically, you do not have to participate in the memory game if you're holding a crystal. And healers can just plant and focus on keeping everyone alive while while everyone else is doing the memory game. And it will ease the damage intake because the healers are able to help out and not focus on that. So again, like I said, after the knocks, everyone groups up at the bosses, and we start P3 proper. So when P3 starts, we have the left group and the right group. The left group starts with soaks. So as soon as left group starts, they get their soaks, and right group gets their memory game. So we're actually watching a right group POV here. And they're immediately going to be getting the memory game when Lura finishes her cast. We are going to have 1 person assigned on each side to call the order of the memory game. It's going to be me on the left group and Lolup on the right group. And you're going to have spread assignments here as well. You never want to be on top of another player unless it's a crystal player during this phase, because if wrong symbols touch, it's just instant wipe. It's just instant wipe. Oh, it might actually just be that those players die, but I'm pretty sure it's instant wipe if the wrong symbols touch. So You see the symbols going out. Everyone gets assigned their symbols, and we're touching each other in order while dodging these constellations. The constellations are priority over actually doing the memory game. You have so much time to do the memory game. So we're just kind of paying attention to the constellations. If there's ever a bad constellation that spawns on us, we're waiting for it to happen. And then we're continuing the memory game, not trying to rush, just going through the motions of doing the memory game. And you can also enter in the markers into the weak aura here as well. And that works. But some guilds just kind of call it because it's a little bit easier than the P1. But we might do both. We'll see what happens. And then you'll see after they finish the memory game, the other side is doing the memory game now. And this side is doing their soaks. 3 soaks spawn. And you can see how we're handling it in the raid plan. We have 3 groups. 4 on these outer ones. And then they're gonna soak them with their crystal people and then move to the middle to finish out that one. And then we just kind of have the healers hanging out in the second one, or whoever's assigned here. 1 healer's here, just to do those soaks. And then it just kind of repeats for the phase. 3 times again. So basically every phase is just repeating mechanics on a cycle of 3, and then you go to the next phase. One more thing to think about is the ultimate cast that she does after every single cycle. Basically, she just starts a cast called Dark Archangel, where one of the crystal players needs to use their extra action button and drop a puddle for us to stand in that protects us from the Dark Archangel cast. You can see that here. One player sacrifices his crystal, and then we move, and she cuts off that quadrant of the room. So we have our assigned players to do that here. It's the remaining DPS players who are holding the crystal that are going to be doing it first. On the first set, we're just doing a run. On the second set, we're doing a gate. So we're running the first one. You can actually kind of cheat towards the edge of where the room is going to be cut off, so you don't have to move too much. You based on where she teleports, you can just like hang out to the right a little bit of her. But other than that, yeah, it's just we're repeating those mechanics for the phase. Whatever mechanic you started with on the first cycle, you will get the other one the first time, the second time. So let's say you're left group and you get soaks first into memory game, and then you do the ultimate. You're going to get memory game into soaks the second time. So you get back-to-back memory game on the left side, and the right side gets back-to-back soaks, and they get memory game first and fourth. And then on the final area, we're very close to each other. Something you don't really have to worry about in this phase until this point is that if you touch someone who's on the other side, on the other group, you both die. It's because technically you're in separate phases, and you do damage to anyone that you touch who's in a different phase in this part of the fight. So you want to make sure you're playing on your half of the room here. The left side gets their soaks first, while the right side gets memory game. This memory game is slightly different from the first 2 in that you get 4 symbols as opposed to 3, and you only have 1 crystal. So the crystal player is going to be standing in the middle, and everyone's going to be spread out around the edges of the crystal aura. And you are going to very slowly and carefully do this memory game, and you want to make sure that you are not clearing on top of this crystal player's head. Not only can that just straight up kill them, it does cosmic damage to them, which will make the soaks spawn. So ideally, let's say Derange and Rat Balls are the first soak. We want one player to move to the other player and clear on them, instead of both of you moving together into the middle. But it's going to be kind of on the fly, and if you see one person move, and let's say you both move at the same time, one person can kind of like back up, and the other person goes. It's just you just be vocal and do not kill our crystal player, because we will just wipe. There is a chance that with the added damage that we're getting with Turbo Boost and increasing raid buff, that we actually just straight up completely skip this part of the fight. Even in Pop-Tart's kill here, they only get one of the hard memory games in this phase, and then they push the boss before they're having to do the second one. So it's just going to depend on how our damage is. This whole fight is basically a can you live check. The DPS check doesn't matter anymore. And the reason I say that it is a can you live check is because you can't really fumble your way into a kill with like 5 people alive on this fight. And the reason for that is when we phase out of phase 3 and go into the secret phase, like 90% of your damage in this phase is you being alive. And I can even show you an example of that in logs. Right here. So in P4, 60.09% of the damage is Dawn Crystal. So this effect, which is called the Last Light, which is a buff that you have on you if you're alive in this phase, just does ticking damage to the boss. So it is extremely important that everyone is alive going into this phase. You can kill the boss with 19 people in this phase if you have good damage and those 19 people live to the end. But it is going to be very, very tight, and ideally you want all 20 people alive for this entire phase just for the boss to die. And that's why I say it is just a live check. Like, all that matters is staying alive and having 20 people going into this phase, and ideally B-res is on top of that. But it's kind of hard to B-res people in P4, so really, like, you just need all 20 people going into the phase, and those 20 people need to live the phase, and the boss dies. So let's talk about P4 a little bit. It is a pretty simple phase. The hard part of this phase is just the fact that you're going to be so nervous, and the rest of the fight was so hard that going to this phase, you're like really stressed out, and it can cause issues. But basically, the whole phase is one tank gets this circle around them, and the other tank gets an extra action button. Everyone is pixel stacked in the middle of this circle, and the tank is standing in the front of the group, blocking these void dogs from touching anyone. If you are a DPS player or a healer and you get touched by one of these void dogs, you die. And we don't want to die in this phase no matter what. So we're pixel stacking, and you get the blaze lines. There's 3 that go out. Our solution to this is going to be left, right, wait for the left one to go off, and then the third one goes left again. Tank, you just need to be playing keep away here, trying to protect these players from these void dogs. He's not going to be able to soak every single one, but again, just left, right, left, and then that's the whole mechanic. You can opt to do up, down, or like north, south, north, but I think left, right, left is a lot safer and gives you more time to react to void dogs coming at you. After the blaze lines spawn, you get the Heaven and Hell cast, which is a beam that's going to follow the group. As soon as this cast starts, you're making a call to run, 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 run. At every single run, you want a immunity player to be in the front of the group, ahead of them, like soaking void dogs that the group is going to be running through. So we're going to have a hunter on the first 2, and then our rogue on the third one. So it's going to be turtle, turtle, and then cloak. You want movement speeds assigned to every single one of these moves, and you're moving for the entire duration of the cast. And as soon as the cast ends, you can stop. Now, after you do the first move, the tank with the extra action button is going to have the wave of void dogs spawn. So this is where the tank uses their extra action button, and it just clears that wave. And again, at the same time, you're doing left, right, left with the blaze lines. That one's easy because there's no void dogs you have to worry about, because the tank just clears them all with his extra action button. Again, we move for the entire duration of the cast. We plant. Everyone's pixel stacked on the middle tank. And again, left, right, left. Tank clears the void dogs. So really the only like challenging blaze set is the first one, because we don't have an extra action button clear. and he actually might even be able to use it there. And he just didn't. I don't know what the exact timing is, but for all of these other sets, you don't have to worry about Void Dogs at all because it gets cleared by the tank. This is the final move. We get one more set of left, right, left here. And then he starts the Midnight Perpetual cast, which is the Enrage. And they end up living with a 1 immunity glass. Kills the boss. There it is. That's the whole fight.